and that's okay. But we do, suggest you get into it. Kathy will, at the end, take you through Moodle and exactly how you finish off the course, how you upload it, and of course, as you're going along over the next week or so, you come across any challenges, you can always get in contact then, and we can talk them through. But I think it's due in a week or so's time, so you'll have to start to get a move on with that. So I do have a bit of content to cover today, just sort of more talking generally about policy guidance, or it's policies, guidelines, ways that jurisdictions are utilising the Safe System Assessment Framework, and how it's being used in New Zealand, where it can be valuable, which stages to do it, how it links with road safety audits and those sorts of things. So I'll cover off that, but as I said, plenty of opportunity to go down any avenues that you would like to explore across safe system assessments in general, the safe system, road safety, or the like. So pop them into the chat, and I'll answer them as we go. So Kathy, just stop me when you think it's appropriate to jump in, and I'm pretty flexible throughout today's session.
Do you want to grab a couple of questions straight off?
If they're already in there, definitely.
Okay. So Susie's written that she's got a roundabout in a 50-kilometre zone and doesn't fit within the shared space as shown. Is a raised platform suitable as slowing solution and continuing with shared space? I think maybe the design is a roundabout.
Oh, hang on. So this is the actual assignment.
Yes. Sorry.
And I suppose I'm just wanting to get clarification there on what the shared space means in this question.
Yep. I might bring up that that particular one, if that's okay, so we can come back to that question. Like I can bring up the design.
Oh yeah. Okay, we can look directly at the design. Yeah, that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll have a look at that one in a second.
Yep.
Live. I mean, most of the designs have been. Oh well. Yeah. Anyway, let's have a look at that one when it comes up.
What a follow, not the same person, and different question. What are your expectations with the SSA site plan? It would be helpful to annotate with site features notes, but don't want to get too carried away.
Yeah. So you're given a design, and that is what will be built with. That's what they're planning to build, and they'll, so then you're going to come up with, your alterations to it. And usually you don't annotate the plan or anything like that, or the like. You put them in the table and just as notes, and then, consider doing raised crossing points on the approach to the roundabout, or consider, these sorts of things. You don't necessarily get in there and sketch it out on the plan for them or anything like that. And yeah, I suppose that's somewhat aligned with Daryl's comment there. You don't want to get too carried away. You're not redesigning it for them. You're just giving them some guidance and things to consider, and they'll have to go out and work all of that out. Because of course, if you start to go too far, you're going to then have to go, well, can that work with drainage? How do I have to do that? I wonder what the lighting's like. And you're starting to become the designer, not the assessor who just sort of says, this is what it is, this is what your design is, and here are some high level sort of recommendations on what could be improving the situation.
Thank you, Ken. There's another question about had a thought whilst doing my SSA for intersection type crashes. Obviously, the exposure is based on the sum of AADTs of the intersecting roads. Does that still apply for a T intersection between a main road and a cul-de-sac, given that all of the cul-de-sac AADT would be included in the main road AADT, would this potentially be double counting?
Well, that's a very good question. I suppose it would depend where your traffic counts on the main road were taken and the turn volumes and the like, if you're getting into specific detail. But what I think you'd find is for most cul-de-sacs, the volume of traffic they're producing is not likely to jump you between the ranges that are put into the safe system assessment scoring, because they're quite large bands. But it might, you might be right on that sort of cusp. So yeah, I might have to think about that. That's a good question. If anybody else has got any thoughts on that, because you are just trying to account for the conflict between vehicles, so you need that main road volume and the side road volume added. The side road volume, though, in most cases will be taking into account some of the main road traffic anyway as well, regardless of whether it's a cul-de-sac or not. So yeah, good question. I'm tempted to say just continue to add it, but I do like the thinking going on here.
Very good. Now I've got that design up. Did you want to have a look at that?
Yeah, okay, let's have a look at that then. Okay, so I suppose the question was talking about it not fitting within the shared space. That I'm not sure what the shared space was there. I mean, there's a sharrow put in there, so that's essentially just saying, well, a roundabout's going to be created, line marked with sharrows. There's going to be no bike facilities as such. It's just going to say you share that piece of road. So you're going to be assessing the existing conditions as they are, and then you're going to say, right, they're going to build a roundabout like this. They're going to fit it in with that curb alignment, and they're just going to mark some sharrows there. So bikes are going to have to claim the lane, merge into that space. It's very conceptual, as you can see. That's the concept. I suppose when they get to detailed design, they're going to have to nut out exact widths of those bits and pieces. But yeah, I think that all appears to make sense to me. But maybe whoever asked that question, if that explanation I've given hasn't helped you, okay, I think that one's come in. Think you've had enough. Yeah, good. Okay, Kathy, any more?
Why, as part of an SSA, are suggestions made for improving safety, safe system alignment of a project option? It feels like that aspect is getting into the RSA space.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. And both road safety audits and safe system assessments make those recommendations to improve things. It's probably one of the areas of significant overlap, but the freedom for, in a practical rollout sense, it just appears that the freedom to make significant change recommendations in a safe system assessment is more. Now, it's probably just a legacy culture from road safety auditing, where the auditors tend to make minor suggestions and the like, again, I use the large signalized intersection example, and the design comes in, and the auditor, often is reluctant to make that big picture call of raise the whole intersection or raise these sort of things. They can, there's nothing stopping them doing that, but just the general approach of industry has been that the auditors are not making that large scope change commentary, more just tweaking with the specifics. But in theory, you're right that it is done in road safety audits as well, those recommendations. But I'll show you shortly, sort of in the life cycle of a project, how both safe system assessments and road safety audits can work really well in a sequence. So I'm a big fan of not adding more red tape to projects if we're doubling up on anything. And I'll show you where I think that safe system assessment is good, and then road safety audits done after would be good too.
Okay, more questions, Ken. On my other assignment, you commented that roundabouts impact severity, but not likelihood. But for an urban roundabout, is it actually the opposite? There is limited deflection to change the impact angle, but they dramatically reduce the number of conflict points compared to an uncontrolled crossroad. And I assume this would outweigh the added potential for rear ends.
Potentially, yeah. So you sort of, at a broad brush level, Austroads put roundabouts as a severity reduction factor and not a likelihood reduction factor, despite their reduced conflict points and the like. But I agree that there's many specific circumstances where you'd question that, and that's fair enough. Yeah, you still do get rear ends at urban roundabouts, and it would depend, I suppose, what the intersection before it was like, as in what you're comparing it to, severity reduction from what to what, or likelihood reduction from what to what. But I am sort of, I suppose, sympathetic towards that. I hope you didn't lose many marks for that, if any. But I'm really, if there's debate, I think it's always easiest just to go to the Austrade Safe System Assessment Framework and see what they attribute it to, because we're getting a little bit into opinion there. But I can see an argument I can see your argument. I think it sounds reasonable without knowing the site in huge detail.
I think we're good for the moment, Ken.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's good. I'm glad we're getting some questions in there, and we'll take more questions as we go, or we can talk about different things. Happy to do that. I'll build a little bit on that discussion around stepping on the toes of the audit process, or overlapping the audit process, because I think that's an important one for us to think about in the policy and process and guidance perspective, and not doubling up and not adding red tape. Okay, let me run through a little content, and then I'll come back to Kathy and see whether we've got other stuff to get through. We've got so we'll take a break a little bit before the hour, and give you a chance to have a stretch and the like. Okay, so we are recording, aren't we, Kathy? I think. Yes, I think we are. That's good. Okay, this session, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the benefits of safe system assessments, because you will come out of this course and you'll successfully complete your safe system assessment and your assignment, quizzes, package it all up, and we'll give you a certificate. And you'll see shortly, in New Zealand, that's as good as it gets in terms of being a safe system assessor. I mean, yes, nice to get some practice and build your knowledge base, but there's no formal accreditation or anything like that. So you can say you can do safe system assessments, or you're a safe system assessor. And so I want you then to be able to talk to people, be that clients or other project teams, or your own project team, or your own team within council, or the regional office, or whatever it is, and explain to them why this thing of safe system assessment is beneficial overall. So I'll give you some info about that. We're going to talk about the process within the life cycle of an infrastructure project, and we're going to talk about that difference between safe system assessments and road safety audits, just as was sort of mentioned there. Okay, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this graph because this is the output of an independent evaluation of 35 safe system assessments that were done on big major infrastructure projects. So these are big, meaty, $100 million style infrastructure projects. But they do show some pretty exciting things, and it tells quite a story. And I'm going to walk you through this in detail. So what we've got here on the y-axis is fatal and serious injury crashes, or DSI, death and serious injury, fatal serious injury crashes. And they are predicted over a 20-year period. Now, this is using a crash prediction model, which is basically to plug in a whole lot of variables and utilizing sort of research and knowledge and traffic volume and growth and pedestrian volume and growth and all of these sorts of things, predict over the 20-year period what would be expected. So they use some crash history, and then they use also a whole lot of factors that you use in IRAP or NRAM or the like, and produce out these predictions on fatal serious injuries. So we see here, this one is no project. And what that means is that there's 35 really big projects that were undertaken, duplications of road, town bypasses, major sort of freeway upgrades and these sorts of things. If they did not do any of these projects, how much death and serious injury would we expect in that bit of the road network over the next 20 years? And you can see here that they predict 344 fatalities and nearly 8,000 serious injuries. And as I said, fairly large amount of work, so large-ish areas of the network, very high volumes, and lots of other stuff. So what they did then is they looked at the original designs. Now, these designs came in as essentially what is commonly referred to as a reference design. And the reference design is, what they will put out to the design and construct contractors to, refine that design down and produce their details and construct it. But the original designs are done and they're reviewed. And I think 33 of these 35 had early stage road safety audits undertaken on them, and some changes have been made. And they said, right, there's the reference design. Let's get a safe system assessment done on it, because these were just coming in and being something that people were exploring. And so what they discovered is the difference there between the project design and the original design or reference design, it was improving road safety. This one down here was, this one here is the high safe system alignment. So as we talked about there, recommendations were made. So they looked at the reference design and they said, right, what would we recommend enhancements to this design to make it higher alignment with safe system principles? And so they recommended all these different things, continuous barriers or raised intersections, or, okay, block off these roads or change this or do that. And these were sympathetic to the objectives of that project and the like. So they're not just, completely, grade separate these, minor roads and these sort of things, which are far beyond what would ever be sort of possible. But they were, pushing. And that brought things down to 3,890 serious injuries, 167 in the prediction model over the next 20 years. The project team looked at that list that was provided of all these ideas, and they said, well, we can do this one and this one. We can't do this one for these reasons. We can't do this one for these reasons. No, can't do that, can't do that. And they ended up adopting a new design, getting their reference design changed, that went back up a bit to 5,300 serious injuries, 227 fatalities over the next 20 years in the upgraded sites. Okay, so what this tells me quite a story on a number of levels, and I'm going to take you through that. The first thing it tells me is that the designs produced, and these are usually by the big design houses, you know, the big multinational design companies, road design companies, it improves road safety, what they're producing. I mean, you can't argue with that, right? Yep, so they're doing that. The next one, though, it says is that with the knowledge we've got and the suite of treatments available to us, and being somewhat sympathetic to the context of the project, we can do a whole lot better. The project teams, though, for some reason or another, they can't quite do all of that stuff that the Safe System assessment team is suggesting. But the difference between that and that is your immediate value of a safe system assessment. Just going through the process of scoring, reviewing, making recommendations, handing it back. And as I remind you here, the road safety audits were done on this. Now, you know, maybe we could delve into that, why the auditor's not making all these recommendations and the like. But what I find interesting, so that's great. I mean, and that's just proof straight away that's a worthwhile thing to be doing. The questions that I then sort of ask are, okay, let's analyze this one. Why are we not able to do that? And if you look into that, we find a whole lot of interesting things around cost, around what the project teams think will be politically or community acceptance, reluctance to do anything, you know, to some of these treatments, they, you know, not convinced to buy it. So it's got a culture issue here across the project teams, and also the, you know, getting the politicians and the community on board with different ideas, and, you know, so that's an interesting one to play out. Next one I find really interesting is this. Like, we're aiming at 0 death and serious injury. So how is it that our high safe system alignment is still giving us this residual death and serious injury? What's going on there? And to a degree, when this came back and I saw the report, I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And these, I should say, these 35 projects and safe system assessments came from a variety of sources. Different consultants did them, and some from road authorities internally. But you know, I went, oh, that's really interesting. First of all, it sort of gave me some confidence in the prediction model that they were using, because what it was showing was that, okay, if you do all of this, your continuous barriers and your raised intersections and, you know, all of this other stuff you've been planning, there's still this proportion of the traveling public who are going to, you know, be going at excessive speeds, or they're on motorcycles doing things, and you haven't been able to manage the energy and keep those down. And, you know, there's going to be extreme behavior events and these sort of things, and your system's not, you know, it's not there yet. Even under your high safe system assessment scenario, the safe system assessments made recommendations around enforcement, around vehicle interventions, you know, working with the local schools and the like. But that was sort of seen as, you can't say then that work around associated with this is going to widespread change that. We need bigger picture change. And we also need innovation and new things and new changes to the way we do things and changes to the whole, vehicle fleet in terms of acceptance of safety features and all of, it's so complicated around that. So that's an interesting one. It's kind of shows the limitations of what really infrastructure and isolated features can do. I think what we'll see is this difference should start coming down closer to this over time. And the reason for that is that designers will get better. And safe system assessments do this wonderful job of that assessment goes back to the designer. And the designer gets it, reads it, goes, oh, okay, all right, well, I can do that. I can do, oh, okay, that's what the safe system aligned thing is. And then the next design they produce, they think of more about those features. And the next design, and then that gets safe system assessed. And we saw that play out with road safety audits. It did an amazing job in educating designers and project engineers to good road safety, or to pretty good road safety practices and thinking about that. So we get this education benefit in industry of going through that process of safe system assessing. And so hopefully, yeah, we'll see that coming down. We'll see this coming down, and we'll see this coming down as well. So we're gonna, see some pretty exciting stuff. This will well, they had some prediction in no project benefits associated with, the vehicle fleet getting better over time by itself, and those sort of things. But we might see some big ticket policy interventions that could bring that down a little bit as well. So that's that graph, and I've drawn lots of things on it, but I'd be interested if people have comments on that or questions about that, or we could answer some other questions if they're in there.
Thank you, Ken. We haven't got any questions on this one at the moment, but again, give everybody a minute or so to type it in. There's just been some questions, and just to reiterate on with your safe system assessment, you go out and you have a look at the site and you do the safe system assessment write-up and scoring on the existing conditions, and then the plan that we've given you with the concept design on there is your design option 1.
Correct. Good. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to keep going.
Okay.
Then I think that's probably good. It just shows the good benefits we can get from just going through this process of safe system assessments, which I'm going to be encouraging you all to obviously get out there and start doing. So it just in some written form in some of the benefits of safe system assessment, it's a great way of determining how well a project aligns with safe system principles, and that's been something the industry's been craving for a long time. I mean, we've been, people say, oh, well, no, that's not safe system, or that is safe system, or that's, that's not good safe system practice, or the like. Well, this is sort of formalized quantification of that. Great method for comparing project design options from a safe system perspective. And road safety audits, and it's pretty clear in the Austrade's guidance and generally in New Zealand guidance as well, it says that audits are not really a tool for comparing project options. They are there to assess any risks that the option presents. And so we haven't really been able to have road safety injected into multi-criteria assessments in a sort of systematic way. I mean, people have developed ad hoc ways to do that and the like, but it's kind of never been this meaty part of that multi-criteria assessment in the way it should have been. Or sometimes, if it's a road safety project, it is, but if it's a public transport project or a congestion easing project, it can often be, are we meeting all the standards? And then that's given this sort of safety tick, and then off you go. So this is a good tool for that. A good way to provide information on design changes that will move a project proposal closer to the safe system objectives that we've been talking about. A good way to assist planners, designers, project managers to move the idea of the safe system from theory to practice. And that's been one thing, again, where people get all okay with the safe system in theory, and then they just continue on their usual practice, because they think that just sort of good road safety stuff I've always been doing and making sure we get that right is good. No, well, this is pushing and asking for us to do more and change things. And a sound basis for future planning of road design infrastructure. So let's have a look at some process guidance. Now, these are general sort of, this is general guidance. The Waka Kotahi is going to shortly put out some guidance around a new road safety audit guidelines and policy, and seeing drafts on that. It aligns very well with what I'm about to sort of tell you around how safe system assessments can integrate and fit into this. But certainly safe system assessments will be required at that level, and down and at a local government level, it'll be sort of up to local governments themselves as to how they choose to integrate this into their projects and their programs. But we know that safe system assessments are best usually utilised at concept, draft, early stages of conceptualising an infrastructure project. And once you're into the details of it and the like, this is where road safety audits are the better, it just seem to play out as a better tool to use. So some of the reasons for that is that the nature of the safe system assessment, as you're finding, is to put forward, changes, decent changes to these projects, suggestions on big alterations, additions of new features, changed forms of intersection and the like. And if you're getting that at, detailed or, functional stage, there's huge reluctance to alter. And you often, got funding commitments and things, and it becomes very hard, near impossible to fundamentally change a project. You can certainly tweak around the details of it and ensure that everything's, you've got the details right, and audits seem to have a better way that plays out. So this, it could change, but this is the way we're seeing things at the moment. So early is better for the safe system assessment. And what is the difference, I suppose, is a fair question to ask. And the 2022 version of the Australia Guide to Road Safety Part 6, Road Safety Audit, has improved things in the audit sense, and we're continuing to work on that. So we see likelihood covered off really well in both. Severity, sometimes. Better under 2022, and it should be done well, but yeah, exposure as its own entity is not really there in a road safety audit. Exposure as anything would in an audit integrate back into likelihood. Recommendations, as that comment was made in both of them, and should improve road safety outcomes. I would say that you'd find that a safe system assessment will be freer to suggest bigger picture and more innovative things usually. But auditors can do that as well. Probably pretty good at considering all road users. The safe system assessment forces that with the columns. Auditors generally are pretty good at considering all road users. Fatal and serious injuries only for a safe system assessment. And audits tend to be able to capture those other injuries quite well. And that can be an advantage for you in holistically thinking about the project. But the safe system assessment just says, let's work on those fatal and serious injury crashes. Then you have these other elements of the safe system, the vehicles, the people, the ideas of maintenance and post-crash care, all through those qualitative questions. Road safety audits don't tend to get into that in detail at all. They often, you see good audits and they're thinking about which people will be using it and what's their level of attention and those sorts of things. So that can be good in a well done audit, and how does it get maintained and those sorts of things. But these others aren't really there. So to redesign the project, and redesign there means really sort of fundamental changes, and safe system assessments do that. Audits really aren't there to redesign the project. It's to tweak and make sure it's redone or it's implemented as safely as possible. Innovative design encourages innovative design. And this was one that I did mention in an earlier session, is that a road safety audit by its nature is only going to report on the things that are proposed to be built that will increase risk. Okay, they're not going to report on what are the things that are being proposed that are going to do a really good job of reducing risk, because that's not the auditor's job. I mean, that's whoever's sort of developing the business case and the project design, that's their job. And the audit, so the audit's not going to present that forward. And also, audits and auditors often don't report on, so they report on what's being built and what risks it could produce, but they far less do they say what is not being built, if that makes sense. So they're really focused on that's being built and that will cause these issues. And that's really important to do, but not that's being built, but this part is not being built. And we can get more out of this project if we do these extra things. Okay, I'm going to go through sort of how the process tends to play out in road safety infrastructure in a process diagram here. But I will pause and just check. I did see something flashing up there. No, I think we're good. Okay, I'm going to run through this and then we'll possibly have a break. Okay, so what we want to do is determine the type of safe system assessment that we want to undertake. And that's done by, I'll call them the client, but it's whoever is the project owner, sponsor, the road controlling authority, or whoever's sort of making those decisions around the administration and management of an infrastructure project. Now, there's two terms being used there, isn't it? Full and rapid. Now, I'll take you through those. Haven't got great clarification from New Zealand as to whether they're adopting this idea that you could do a couple of different types of safe system assessment. That may come out in some guidance, but we'll see. And I'll explain to you shortly what the difference is. They're not hugely different. One's a little bit quicker, hence the rapid, and drops off a few of the features of the assessment. So then the client or the designer or the project manager will select a safe system assessment team. And the team, again, there's no specific guidance of it, but like anything, you would want to ensure that whoever is in that team knows how to do a safe system assessment, has done the appropriate training, and knows what they're doing, basically. Now, we do talk about teams, and we do like to do safe system assessments in teams, a bit like road safety audits in teams. And it's alluded to, but it's not absolutely hard and fast that it must be a team, but it's sort of said it works well in teams. Then there's some sort of exchange of information, and you can call it a commencement meeting, and this is where everybody gets in the room or on Teams or the like, and explains the project, make sure everybody's clear. It's a good opportunity for you as a safe system assessor to ensure that your client understands what the process is, what will be produced, what they are to do with any reports that come out of it, and the like. So it's a good way to get everybody on the same page. And it's also a good time there to really understand the context of the project that's proposed. And this is where they can talk about all of their constraints and the different things that have been committed, and the land use and the volumes of vehicles, really gather that information. I'll often do all of this as one sort of workshop and make sure everybody's on the same page, and then just get good description of the project. Ask lots of questions. Why are you doing that? You know, what's the growth of the area like? Where are the schools in the area? What have you got? Traffic volumes? Have you got pedestrian volumes? Have you got cyclist volumes? Can you predict pedestrian volumes? You know, all of that sort of stuff. Gather all that intel. Then it goes off, and the safe system assessment team start to work a bit by themselves, and they inspect the site. And they complete the matrices, which you are doing at the moment, and you'll start to get into that. And they fill those out with some details, some scores. They do the existing conditions. They do all of the designs. They consider the other elements of the safe system and those qualitative questions. They provide recommendations or ideas on treatments to improve safe system alignment. They write all of this up into the report using standard templates, as in standard headings and the like, not necessarily the standard front cover and things. Put your own front covers and the like, but ensuring we're covering off the same information, and you're getting practice at that as well. And then that's handed over. And it's then over to the project team to respond to the suggested changes. So certainly they might be using the scoring to inform different things that they'll be, different choices that they might be making. But they also expected to then make comments as to why they will or they won't be able to do different things that this safe system assessment team is suggesting. And then they amend the designs based on that. Now, there's really no requirement for that response to go to the safe system assessment team, but it's this important process that we never want them to forget that this is advice on improvement. This is not just the scoring, but advice to improve as well. So you need to start considering these and integrating agreed changes in here. Now, from there, before I go back, the other thing that does sometimes happen is that a project team will take, okay, so they've made these suggestions and we've agreed to some of them. What will the score be after all of those things have been done? So they create this new design, potentially, or they say, well, we're going to do this, this, and this, and this. And then it goes back into here, and it's given a new score. And that can be really quite effective, because you can end up with a graph that sort of looks like this, and it goes original design or original idea, existing conditions, original idea, safe system after safe system assessment. And so what that shows is that, as you push this up the line, it says, hey, we've done everything we can here. We did a good design, and it dropped the score down there. And now we've pushed even harder, and the safe system assessors have come in, and they've been able to help us to get all the way down to here. And so we're really pushing to get high safe system alignment. It tells quite a nice story. Okay. Any questions on that process? some of you will go, well, this all looks very familiar because that's kind of how a road safety audit works. And you'd be right. And the safe system assessment process was trying to sort of mirror the road safety audit process, because people are quite comfortable in that are doing road safety infrastructure improvements or road alterations or the like. So they kind of understand this process. And one of the things you'll see in some of the jurisdictional policies, not New Zealand at this stage, but it says that if you do a safe system assessment at the early stage of a project, you don't need to do a road safety audit at that early stage. So you may replace the feasibility stage road safety audit or the early concept road safety audit with a safe system assessment. And that's where we're getting that reduction in duplication or not adding extra burden to a project that will give us similar outcomes. Anything from you, Kathy, before I start showing what some other jurisdictions do?
No, we're all good for questions at the moment. Thank you, Ken.
But this actually might be a decent time for us to have a 5-minute break, because I'll show you what some other jurisdictions are doing. Then we'll just do a little bit of a final exercise where we'll look at some road environments and get a few ideas, and then we'll be able to finish it off after that. So, Kathy, is that all right? 5-minute break?
Sorry, that was a delayed reaction. Yes, absolutely. Have a 5-minute break.
All right, let's take 5 minutes and we will be back in 5 minutes. Okay. So just, I suppose, flagging what some other jurisdictions are doing, just so you're aware of what's happening across Australia and a bit about New Zealand. But I think the Victorian page, the Safe System Engineering page, is pretty good from a safe system assessment perspective, because it provides those templates that you've been using, both the rapid and the full safe system assessment template. So I suggest you use those, and you'll see within there it says, please, rebrand them or whatever. Let's just be consistent with what we're producing. So that's some really good stuff there. Also, so Victoria and South Australia are the two jurisdictions that have a register of safe system assessors, a list, so the Victorian one has this little diagram that shows you how to get onto this list, and it says that you sort of can express an interest to the safe system engineering team in the Victorian government, and they'll guide you to this course, which you can see sort of listed there, and that you should get your head around the fundamentals of safe system, and then how to do the safe system assessment process, and go through that course, or this course, and then get some practical experience and undertake a safe system assessment. So a real one. So the one you're doing now is sort of a mock one, and some of those projects we've just made up to be close to your house or the like. You do the real one with a real client, where you're gathering that context and that information, and you pull that all together, and then you hand in your safe system assessment, and they mark it or they review it, and if it, they say, yep, they know what they're doing, you go on to this list, and the list just sort of gets updated at different frequencies, and the list is just a PDF, and it's got, well, it's a longer list than that. I think we're getting close to 100 people now, which is great, and just contact details there. So there's nothing saying that a New Zealander couldn't get on that list. So if you have a desire to, I suppose, have be on this specific list, you can go through that process. At the moment in New Zealand, as I mentioned, simply successfully completing this course is generally seen as the good grounding to be able to get involved in safe system assessments. You get a certificate of successful completion out of this course, assuming you get through those hurdles that you've still got to go. So this one, is just to show you how some jurisdictions think about this. And you have to understand your New Zealand corporate requirements from Waka Kotahi or from your local government, or how you're going to integrate this into your own policies. So I only put this up here just for your, so you know what's going on in different jurisdictions. But for example, the Victorian government says that any project with capital cost under $2 million should have a rapid safe system assessment if it's been determined that this formal assessment is required. Okay, but if it's between 2 million and 5 million, then it has to have a safe system assessment of some description and a full safe system assessment for anything complex or significant risk of FSI or for anything innovative, but rapid if it's a lower risk project or any sort of repeat assessments. And that's, remember when I drew that line back to say, you get to the end of this and you might go back, well, that's that sort of repeat assessment. And 5 million and greater, it's just full safe system assessment for all projects. And so, I think that's a reasonable way to do it. We don't need safe system assessments for very, minor little things often. Sometimes you should be able to identify and go, actually, there could be some benefit out of this. But the difference between that rapid and full safe system assessment, as I said, is not a huge amount. Okay, there is a bit of difference. I'd say maybe a rapid is about 70% of the effort or of a full, but Anyway, let's just go through a full and I'll tell you what drops off for a rapid. But you've got your commencement meeting, which we talked about, and you get all your project background and context, and you have some sort of workshop, getting out there and looking at the site. You look at the existing conditions and all the design options you're given, and then you produce matrices on all of those. You look at the other safe system elements, the people, the post-crash care, the vehicles, make recommendations on alterations to the designs of all of those options, fill out this full safe system assessment report, and then it gets handed over to the client for consideration of them adopting changes, and they rescore if necessary and alter project scope. So that's that. What drops off for a rapid? Well, potentially not a commencement meeting, but that, often you still do that. You still got to get some sort of project background. And so it might be more that they hand over some reports or the project or the context of it. The workshop can drop off as well within that. The site inspection I'll sort of dot this one out. We certainly do see rapid safe system assessments where site inspections are done and it can add value, but there is the possibility of having a desktop style assessment. Matrices are done in both. Other safe system elements. Now, this is one that does drop out. So you don't actually answer all of those qualitative questions around the people, the vehicles, the post-crash care and all of that. This is really just giving you, here's the infrastructure and here's its score and here's some recommended improvements. Changes that, so you don't do a full, it's a lighter report. And then I think the rest is pretty much the same. So a few things drop off, as I said. So that's probably where I want to get to. I should say the South Australia, actually, I'll go back here. The South Australians, their register, which I can pull up, it's on the web. Their register of safe system assessors, and I call them pre-qualified safe system assessors, they provide a list. Theirs is simply successful completion of this course. This is the course that they've approved and the one that they say, okay, anybody who sends us a certificate from this course, we will add to our list. So you could get onto that one. That would be the easiest one to get onto because you wouldn't have to actually do the full safe system assessment. At the moment, as I mentioned, New Zealand doesn't have anything specific. You're going to get an updated set of guidelines on road safety audit from Waka Kotahi soon. I think they're going to release it as a working document, and it certainly highlights safe system assessments within that project lifecycle process as an important thing to do. It's certainly built into some of your business case requirements at a national level, and we're seeing more and more of them coming on board. Good. Thank you, Kathy. So here's the Government of South Australia, Department of Infrastructure and Transport, and pre-qualification. If you go right down to the bottom, yeah, you go. You've got Register of Safe System Assessors. So you click on that. PDF should come up. There it is. And you've got your list there of safe system assessors. And again, there's a decent sort of number in there. It's me. Spelt wrong, but that's all right. Yeah, so it's good. We're building up a nice little, army of safe system assessors across Australia and New Zealand, and we want to do that because it provides great value within projects, as you are seeing. So, any questions on policies, registration, what you can and can't do? Road safety audits versus safe system assessments or any of that, or we'll do our final little exercise and then give Kathy some time to show how you can finish this course off.
Thank you, Ken. Do you know if Waka Kotahi are considering a similar register or where they're at the moment?
I've heard no indications. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I know they've been investigating a register of road safety auditors and looking at the sort of benefit cost of going through that exercise, because it is quite a lengthy task, an administratively heavy task to administer that. Austroads has a project out at the moment on harmonisation of road safety audit practices around the registration. So the idea would be that you could become like an Austroads accredited road safety auditor, and that would cover you across all of Australia and all of New Zealand, is the sort of dream. And that it's centrally managed, and you have the big database, and then there's, injection of continuing professional development requirements and competency testing and all of that wonderful stuff. We'll see how that plays out. There's been minimal talk about the inclusion of safe system assessors in this sort of thing, and certainly I haven't heard anything from Waka Kotahi at this stage. New Zealand has operated fairly effectively without a register of road safety auditors in terms of getting audits done, reasonable quality. Of course, there's varying quality across it, but if you compare that with jurisdictions that do have these registers in place, there's not a major difference, and the effort that can go into some of these registers and the like can be pretty significant. So yeah, long story short, no, I'm not aware of anything major happening in that space for New Zealand. So I wouldn't hold your breath for that. And yeah, anything else, Kathy?
Thank you, Ken. Just a question about the safe system assessment exercise. I was just typing a bit of a response in there, but the questions about will the assessments be provided to the local authority, the site is of concern, and that sort of thing. And it's really a training exercise. So, and some of the designs are made up. So we have our design generator, and the purpose is that you get to practice doing the scoring and that sort of thing. So hopefully, if the scores are bad, these designs won't go anywhere.
Sorry, you dropped off a bit at the end there, Kathy.
Sorry, whoops.
But yes, that is correct. We will not be, we're not providing this to the local authorities. Some of you may have got a real design. If you wanted to talk to the road authority about it, you could, because it's if you've got a real design, it's public, right? We've not got anything that's not public. So that's out there for consultation with the community, and you could provide them with some feedback. Yeah, as we said, our designers have probably produced your design, and it was just made up as something that there's usually some sort of merit to it. I mean, they've had a look around, they've gone, well, actually, yeah, that, a roundabout there would fit, would slow speeds and could do well, but it hasn't been thought through in the detail you would in terms of project development usually.
It's about finding something local, nearby, so you're not spending a small fortune on petrol at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, and we just want to see you go through that process of assessing the existing conditions and then assessing how the changes will improve things.
A follow-up comments come through to say it's more of a concern about the existing intersection. How do we know if it's a real design?
So that's a good question. You could talk to your local authority and say, do you have any plans for this intersection? That would answer that. Or you can email us and say, is this a real design or not? We will tell you. But I dare say most of them are made up. And you're probably, if you're going, well, I looked at the existing conditions here and I'm quite concerned by this intersection, you've probably picked because our designer had a little scan of your area and went, nah, it doesn't look, looks like something could be done here, and came up with something.
Okay, any other questions? Or did you want to run through anything else, Ken?
Well, I've just got a few, I suppose, different road environments that I just want to briefly talk about their safe system alignment, because as we're talking about there, we've got a specific road environment that everybody's doing safe system assessments on. But when we give you your certificate of successful completion, it doesn't say, successful completion for local road intersections only. It just says, safe system assessment, successful completion. So you, in theory, could then go and do a safe system assessment on a new motorway or a rural highway or a local road intersection or a strip shopping centre. So we want to just run through at a very high level a few things on each of these different road environments I've popped in here. We'll do a couple of them interactive and a couple I'll just jump through quickly. And it is really just to highlight a few things that we know align well with safe system principles in each of these road environments. We've covered a fair bit of it in the course already, but it just sort of wraps it up nicely. And then we'll give you some time to do your final quiz. And if you haven't yet started your safe system assessment, to get a bit of a hurry on in that. Okay, so residential environments. Actually, this one I will get you to jot down some ideas. What could we change in this residential environment to give us higher alignment with safe system principles? It's currently a default 50 km/h road. It sort of accesses onto a main road down here. And when you write things in, put in brackets exposure, likelihood, or severity, because I'm always, I'm always asking that question. So any ideas on what we could alter here to get better alignment with safe system principles? And is it going to impact exposure, likelihood, and severity? And I'll give out a prize, I think, for some. I've got a couple of things in mind. I'll give out some prizes. Good, seeing a few things in. And thank you for the E's and the L's and the S's afterwards and writing that, because that always makes me happy. And we know that that's a pretty important part of safe system assessing, isn't it? Ravindu there has said cul-de-sac, and I'm going to give a prize there, and it's exposure as well. That certainly is always a great one to start thinking about, is do we need this freedom of access to all these residential streets? I know it's pretty basic transport planning, isn't it, that we try to consolidate these sort of things, but it's always worth exploring that as much as we can. And I think it was good to spell it out there. Surprise there. But everybody is coming up with really great sort of local area traffic management, getting speeds down style stuff, which influences both likelihood and severity. And that's good. So Kathy, you can work out who was sort of first in something in that speed reduction, traffic calming style stuff there. We'll add a prize. And we're really looking to be getting speeds there significantly down. We talked about our movement in place and one network framework, sort of thinking around these areas. We're not providing throughput so we can have significantly dampened speed. In fact, we want to discourage speed through there, not just from the safety perspective, but from the attractiveness perspective, to get the exposure down as well. We don't want people running and using these as ways to get through. A few different things came in on likelihood. So some ideas on some parking alterations, staggering parking and the like, and that's reasonable. Yeah, if we were to remove parking on a road like this, we'd want to be careful because of the opening up of the width of the road and the increased speed. You'd probably open up some sight lines, which would be reducing the likelihood of crash, but you would increase speeds, which would increase likelihood and severity of crash. So if you did that in combination with curb out stands and the like, that would be good. Or staggering and thinking about parking arrangements can also help with likelihood and when you get into the detail thinking around it. And yeah, lighting was another one in there that's a likelihood reducing factor as well. So that's good. I mean, that's giving me confidence. You're all thinking along the right lines. We talked about this in one of the previous sessions, similar sort of things. So we've done well there. This is an interesting one. I mean, these sorts of areas, we won't do this one as a group exercise, but these are the sort of areas where you've really identified them as places for people, or these really high vibrant areas of pedestrian trading, congregation, meeting, socializing. And the idea of it operating as anything in terms of traffic movement priority is just getting less and less. And we really start to recognize that these areas should be very low speeds if open to traffic at all. But these are the kind of shared zone areas that you can produce very, very low speed environments. And you can see here that these bollards look like they used to have some sort of chains or something to try to get pedestrians to not be crossing there, but would have been complied with so badly and people just walking on the road anyway that I think the road authority has been smart enough to remove those. It is a temptation. People get tempted to say, well, no, let's put a dedicated crossing point there and we'll put a big, fencing here and fencing here and fence off this and force them all to go to there and cross. And you end up discovering that in these sort of vibrant areas and the like, people will do, what this guy's doing. They'll get to the fence, they'll just walk along the road until they get to the point they can. And so you're not addressing these sort of things. Lower the speed, continue the free permeability, and you tend to get great outcomes. Okay, quick prize. If you can tell me where this is, somebody, and then let's talk about. So that'll be the first prize, and then let's do the little exercise here on these, what I call mixed-use arterials. Who was first in with Hamilton? Daryl was, and
Melanie's got Pack and Save Mill Street. So is there a prize there for extra detail?
Yeah, prize for both of them, I think. And you can buy the prize from Pack and Save, maybe. Right. Okay, we've got a mixed-use arterial. And the term mixed-use arterial sort of saying a road that has many functions. It's mixed. We've got the public transport. We've got the vehicle sort of, it's important vehicle route. Pedestrians are crossing and walking along. We've got cyclists up and down. So let's do that similar little exercise. We won't spend long on it. Jot down a few ideas. Some of you know this bit of network quite well. It's on the approach to the CBD. There, the speeds are what, about 60 km/h speed limit. You've got decent, medium traffic volumes. What are we thinking? Is it 60? I think it is 60. So pop in a few ideas, and good, just as Lynn's done, likelihood and severity or exposure, popping those in there. So that's good. Okay. Well, I think we're seeing, some good ideas there. Let's give Lynn a prize there. First one to get in there on the raised crossings. And I really like that idea. I think it's wonderful opportunity in these sorts of environments to start raising those intersections, not necessarily, down to sort of 20 km/h, trying to get, operating speeds down, but, bringing them down to 30s or so, 40s, dampening speeds through there, breaking up that long straight run, the ability to use it as a racetrack, slowing, people down at these conflict points. It works both slowing down at conflict points, but as almost a local area traffic management device. It's the approach to the CBD. It just fits in quite nicely. So I think they're wonderful. I think the ideas there around, sorry, I'll just close that, didn't I? The separated cycleways, I think, is a great idea. That could be reducing likelihood or exposure, depending on how it's done. Getting speeds down a bit would be a good idea. And possibly the median to reduce likelihood of crashes. And if you were to put barrier systems down there, the severity, although I think you could, have speeds within tolerable levels for head-on crashes, that the barrier system in there is probably not needed, and it probably contravenes some of the general one network framework classifications. The one thing I do want to alert you to is that I project managed an Austroads project a few years back. It was called Safe System for Mixed Use Arterials, and we what we did was we took mixed use arterials kind of like this, and some of them were a little bit different to this. There actually was one example route we used in Hamilton, the other side of Hamilton, further up near the Waka Kotahi office. But we did that for a whole lot of jurisdictions around Australia and New Zealand. And I think it's not a bad thing to have a look at as well if you're faced with these scenarios, because there's some good ideas on how to alter these sorts of environments to get high safe system alignment. And it uses some real world examples as well, which is always can be helpful, and you can see the designs of concepts that could improve that alignment. So maybe, Kathy, do you reckon we could find that and pop it in there if it's not already into Moodle?
Will do.
Okay, I'll jump through the next ones, and then I'll hand it back to Kathy, or we'll have any final questions or comments. The wider New Zealand low volume rural road network is going to be particularly challenging. And the reason for that is that there's not enough money to deploy significant infrastructure investment to keep this at high speed in a safe system aligned manner. And that would require continuous barrier systems and, probably pretty decent investment at intersections. And so what we've got there is, the requirement to start reducing the speed on these roads to lessen the likelihood and severity of crashes, predominantly the likelihood, because we're probably going from 100 kilometers an hour down to, 80 or the like. And then really focusing again on all the likelihood factors we can do, which would include things like sealed shoulders, reduce the likelihood if you can do that, audio tactile edge line, center line, trying to get some separation. I often opt for a little bit more separation and narrowing the lanes a bit, and people, that reduces the speed a little bit as well, delineation and the like. But we are really going to have to start to re-evaluate travel speeds on these sorts of roads, and that's not going to be popular. I know New Zealand's got a lot of big plans and big strategies and big policy changes coming in this space, and certainly Australia is watching very closely and wanting some good leadership from New Zealand in this space, because it's going to be very, very challenging to get our community to understand why we need to do this. The high volume rural roads, though, is where the investment in the infrastructure is, where you want to be investing your infrastructure money on these roads, and you want to be creating the central barrier system and outer barriers so that you can keep the speeds high. And the 1+1 type scenario, one lane in each direction with overtaking lanes. And there's some pretty good examples across New Zealand now. We're seeing them roll out. Of course, you had one of the first ones in the Southern Hemisphere being the, what's the highway that rolls into Wellington? Centennial Highway, I think it is. So that's, just amazing road safety improvements after the installation of that central barrier system on a 1+1 style scenario, and really has led the way there. So deploying that on mass, but on the sort of the backbone of your network, keep the speeds high on those, get the speeds lower on the ones you cannot invest in but are lower volume. Of course, when you do that central barrier system, you have challenges, well, intersections, you're going to have to think about how you treat those, but also, access points and breaks in access points if you've got a central barrier system. But if you are able to pop a roundabout in there and use that as a U-turn facility, that can be good. It does multiple purposes, as in slows vehicles at this dangerous point, provides a really safe U-turn facility. If you've collected some people out of their access points along the way and they want to go the other way. So, theoretically, that's a wonderful way to do things. There's good ways to sort of do corridor planning in this sense and pick your intersections and, think about treatments that operate and impact on both, reducing risk at the intersection, but also as turnaround facilities and how you can stage these works. And you get some pretty nice potential benefits and outcomes of this. When we're into these urban areas and we have these high volume outer suburban arterials, which tend to be major traffic routes, the ability for us under, to get high alignment with safe system principles to mix vulnerable road users like bikes and traffic is not there. And when I say mix, I still call this mixed, even though there's a bike lane as such. For me, that is, that's mixing, because we know that vehicles leave their lane, people fall asleep, get distracted, whatever it is. And the energies on these roads, because the speeds are higher, way beyond what could be tolerated by the cyclist. So this is where we've got to provide these dedicated separated facilities for cyclists, for pedestrians. If we've determined that it is a traffic route, priority traffic route, you're really separating it out. You're creating more the urban freeway style stuff where you're trying to block pedestrians from crossing, provide them with potentially overpasses, underpasses if you can, raising any conflict points like an intersection like that to low, to reduce the speeds to within tolerable levels. And your motorways, really you're looking at trying to understand how they operate. So exposure is extremely high on these roads for passenger vehicle crashes. The speeds tend to be high. The likelihood of crash is actually quite low. They're really highly designed, but the exposure sort of pushes that up into a different level. We do see very low amount of cyclist trauma, almost none, because no cyclists are there, which is, which sort of shows the benefit of that exposure. But we do see surprisingly high pedestrian trauma on motorways, and it's often due to people getting out of their cars or getting out of taxis in the wee hours of the morning and doing all sorts of crazy things, or going to the toilet or throwing up or whatever they're doing, and this. So what we end up having to do is, well, two things we want to try and manage: incident management and those sorts of things, or when the freeway starts to break down in terms of flow, or the motorway breaks down in terms of flow. And that's because we see high speed and an increased likelihood of crashes. So our severity and our likelihood are both up there. When it's completely, the flow's broken down and it's very low speed, we see likelihood of crash is still high, but severity is extremely low. You don't want those little bingles and things, and the traffic ops people certainly don't, because they cause all sorts of extra troubles. But from our safe system perspective, the energies are low, so we're okay with that. But anyway, the real thing we get into are the managed motorways with lane use management, ramp metering, which is your signals that let people in and off the ramps, and your ability to control incidents, to hold the motorway's hand as it breaks down. So essentially proactively reducing speed limits and warning as the flow breakdown starting to happen, and we're seeing more turbulence in the flow and those sorts of things. So that's how we sort of see and manage the likelihood and severity aspects of this. And finally, our major rural highways, and this is, your State Highway 1 and the like, which, well, probably we could go back a few slides and look at those sort of 1+1 scenarios as well. But as you get your real big ones, we're going to see continuous barrier systems outside and through the middle of these, and then grade separating your intersections. Most people roundabouts are great, and if you can move those through on some of their higher volume ones, The lower volume ones, often we see a fairly well-aligned safe system option is, so if you've got an intersection like that, for example, and you know, instead of having the vehicle be able to cross or turn right out of here, you sort of close off your median and you provide a nice long acceleration lane and a nice amount of space for them to be able to get into the right lane, a U-turn back, acceleration lane back, and again, a nice amount of space for them to get over to the other side if they needed to go straight. And what we see there is that that acceleration and the delta V in here is really good, because if crashes happen, the speeds, the angles, the change in velocity is good. They get some time to get over here. Same in that merge back, the delta V is good. As long as you provide decent length of acceleration lane, it's pretty good. Merge from right is not the best, but yeah, you know, speeds and angles and enough length, you get a decent outcome. And that's how you can, utilizing not a grade separation or a major impact on through traffic speed or any impact on through traffic speed, get pretty high alignment with safe system principles. Hope that makes sense. I can send some examples of that sort of stuff to anybody who's playing in that space. All right, Kathy, over to you to see if there's any final questions for me. Otherwise, just show everybody how to finish this course off, and then I'll make a final little statement at the end.
Lovely. Thank you, Ken. So I should have, there it is, the Austroads safe system on mixed use arterials. That's what you're after, wasn't it, Ken?
Yep, that's the one.
Good. So that's in there in module 5. But where we're at is you're just completing your safe system assessment, which you've already got your template, which we went through last session, the graph generator to make it nice and easy for you, and your site, which everyone has had a look at or knows where it is or has told me they want a fresh one, hopefully. It is due next Thursday, so I think that's 3 p.m. our time, your time, one of our times. But anyway, if you get it in before next Thursday, that'll be great. And then we'll spend probably about the next week or so going through them and marking them. You do get more than one attempt, so if it's not quite there on your first attempt, that's okay. You'll get some feedback and then you can have another go at it. There is one last quiz as well, so just jump back into, should be in module 5. There it is. That's the last quiz for you to do. Once you've done all your quizzes, all the assignments, and they've been marked, then you can jump in here and give us some feedback on the course. So there's a few questions in there for you to answer. And then once it's all been marked and everything, your certificate electronic version will appear here, almost like magic. And then we'll also send you a hard copy in the mail and any prizes that you've won along the way. So I'll just pause there for any questions from anyone?
Thanks for that, Kathy. Just to reiterate there, you've got to finish everything off. You have to do the feedback form, and then your certificate is released electronically, and that gives us the notification you've completed the course as well. And we then are able to send you a little pack with anything else there. So I think I'll just sort of sum up and then we'll let everybody get into finishing it off. But I want to thank everybody for taking the time to undertake this course. I know you're extremely busy. There's a lot going on, and to take time out of that schedule to have a look at how we can further the road safety cause is really important, and well done on doing that. I've been loving seeing what was coming in already from this group. I love the interaction. I love the passion. And yeah, I really want to thank you for this. I want you to continue to be champions for road safety in your organizations and in the community. And I want you to utilize this as a tool to legitimize your input into projects and the like, going a step up from opinion to here's a formalized assessment on it, and promote it to people. Tell them you can do this. You can help them. You can help their project. We can help it along. We can assess it. You've got the certificate to show that you can do this, and get it out there. Please feel free to put it on your social media if you're on LinkedIn or other Facebook or whatever. You know, feel free to put a scan of the certificate. Say I've successfully completed this course, and you know, I encourage people to do safe system assessments on their project to add value. Feel free to tag me in or our company in, and we'll share it around as well. And get the word out there, because we want safe system assessments done on all projects, and continuing to add value, and just people thinking safe system aligned. I want to thank Kathy for all the work behind the scenes. These don't magically just happen. There's a lot of work behind the scenes.
I think you think that magically happen.
Yeah, I do, because I just log in and it's everything's happening. But lots of work, and also want to pay a lot of respect to Waka Kotahi on their I suppose ventures to build capability capacity in safe system assessment and safe system across New Zealand, because they can see the value of it, and they're really making a big effort there. And congratulations to them, and congratulations to all the local governments that are getting involved, and the consultants. Thanks, Kathy. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Ken. Appreciate your passion and enthusiasm for the topic. It's always great. And yes, I know there's many people who are waiting, and some of your colleagues, especially my friends at Auckland Transport. We are getting more courses up and running, and so as many people who want to do the training will try and get to do the training. So if they haven't made it into this one or the next one, we are working towards that. So just tell them to hang tight. I've got their details.
Haven't booked my weekends out yet, Kathy. I'll do weekend courses.
Oh, I see.
People will in.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Good luck with it all. Keep in contact.